Hello and welcome to today's edition of HughesRound. It is Monday the 14th of December 2020, which means that 2020 is finally nearly over. We're just a few weeks away from the end of this godforsaken year, but that's not to say that next year is gonna be any better, because it may very well not be in any way, shape or form. Okay, if you're out there in internet land, if someone would like to send me a message to let me know that you can hear me, you can see me, you know what's going on, before I launch head on into the show, because otherwise I'll be sitting here going, can anyone see this? Yes! Daylight Dave says, hey Graham, hey chat. Thank you, Daylight Dave. Okay, I know that I'm broadcasting at least on YouTube. Fantastic, good stuff. So what I wanted to talk about today, in fact, no, I can't say what I wanted to talk about. It makes it sound like I have to ask someone's permission. What I am going to talk about today is private schools. And I know I've gone on about this in the past. I know I've gone on about it on previous editions of Hughes at 10 and probably previous editions of HughesRound. I do go on about it quite a lot, but I was particularly pissed off today when I had learned that the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, had requested, since London is going up from tier 2 into tier 3, whatever tiers mean, I don't know, he said, well listen, why don't we send all the kids home after tomorrow? That would give us a 10-day window, because it's 15 tomorrow, a 10-day window until Christmas Day, when they might see their elderly relatives again. And it will be out of the danger zone for them having picked up COVID at school and then seeing their grandparents. An eminently sensible thing to ask, considering this week in school. I know it's a long time ago for a lot of people, well, maybe not teachers, but the rest of us, it's a long time ago, but I distinctly remember the last week of the autumn term just being taken up with faffing around, watching videos, playing games and making Christmas decorations. So they're not going to be missing much if they stay at home, which they can do. And obviously, before someone goes, but Graham, what about the people who can't afford to stay at home and work and look after their kids? Yes. So what you do is you make it so, like we did in lockdown, if their children are essential workers or their parents can't take the time off, they can stay in school. What it will do is reduce the chance of thousands of people contracting COVID-19 on Christmas Day. Happy Christmas, Granny. Here's a deadly disease that's killed 1.6 million people around the world. Yay, have some of this. Merry Christmas, I love you. Oh no, you're dead. So what does Gavin Williamson say to this? Gavin Williamson, the guy who sounds more like Frank Spencer than actual Frank Spencer. He says, no, it is a matter of national importance that these children stay in school an extra 3 days. So we increase the possibility of them transmitting the virus to their relatives, to their elderly relatives, who very well might die. I mean, I think the death rate for catching COVID-19 and dying if you're over the age of 80 is ridiculous. It's over 25%. 1 in 4. 1 in 4. Give your granny a gun on Christmas Day with four chambers and 1 bullet in it, and go, here you go, granny. Happy Christmas. So, yeah, what's this got to do with private schools? I hear you cry. No one said that. But yeah, I think that's what you're all thinking. Well, it turns out that Eton, that hallowed institution, sent all the kids home this week. So if you are rich and pompous enough to be able to afford to send your crotch spawn off to Eton College, your grandparents' parents are going to be fine this Christmas probably. Statistically, they'll be less likely to contract COVID-19 than the grandparents of a child who goes to an inner city comp. Again, just like the A-level fiasco, also orchestrated by Gavin Williamson, privately educated, I think, by the way. The posh kids get a better deal than everybody else. So the A-level fiasco over August was that because they couldn't do A-levels properly because of COVID-19, they decided to take the predicted grades and give the kids the predicted grades. Now, they decided to tweak it a little bit because, you know, teachers might give their kids better grades than they'd actually get in reality. So they decided to tweak all the kids who go to state school pretty much had their grades knocked down. My nephew went down from A's to C's. and meanwhile, the kids who went to the posh schools, the privately educated schools, private education schools, they had their grades put up. The grades for kids who, I mean, for God's sake, was it 20 of our prime ministers have been to the one school, Eton? 20 have been to the one school? When you look at all of the Brexiteers, all of them, everyone who enabled Brexit or pushed for Brexit or made Brexit happen, all of them, the one thing they've got in common is, apart from Len McCluskey, they went to a private school. I mean, even the commentators in the press, people like Isabel Oakeshott and Haiti Hopkins and Nick Ferrari and who else? Brexity people in the media. Lawrence Fox, all privately educated. The Brexit lot. Okay, so that's Nigel Farage, Aaron Banks, Richard Tice, Daniel Hannan, Andy Wigmore, all privately educated. In the Conservatives, obviously Cameron, who did more to destroy this country than anybody else by offering a simple in-out referendum. I think we talked about this last night. It wasn't simple. It was incredibly complex, but people thought, oh, it's just going to be simple. We just leave. Yeah, that hasn't worked out, has it? But yeah, Cameron, Gove, Johnson, Rees-Mogg, Steve Baker, but Brexit hardman Steve Baker, all privately educated. But then you look at Labour and you're like, hang on, it's all right, Labour will save the day. No, Corbyn went to a private prep school and all of his advisors did as well. No, they actually went to proper private schools. So there was Seamus Milne, who was the little poison dwarf man who used to follow Corbyn around and basically tell Keir Starmer to shut up at every opportunity. He was privately educated. There's a guy called Andrew Murray, not the tennis player. This is a guy who was a Corbyn advisor. He's an ex-revolutionary communist, like Claire Fox, who decided to go in with Labour in 2015 once Corbyn got in as leader. And he didn't just go to a posh private school. He's part of the aristocracy. He's actually part of the British aristocracy. And he was advising Corbyn on what to do about Brexit. And then Andrew Fisher, who wrote the 2017 Labour manifesto, privately educated. Jenny Formby, who was head of the NEC under Corbyn, privately educated. John Landsman, you know where this is going, don't you? John Landsman, who is head of Momentum, who I like to call Tories in disguise. You say it in a kind of Transformers voice, so it's Momentum, Tories in disguise. Yeah, you get the idea. I won't sing, I can't. But yeah, John Landsman, privately educated. And I'm seeing this theme. I'm seeing this running thing, and everyone goes, "Oh, but Graham, not everyone who goes to private school is a sociopathic, narcissistic wanker who gets into power somehow." And I'm like, yeah, and not everyone who voted for Brexit is a racist, but every racist voted for Brexit, and every psychopath who is in power at the moment went to private school. Dido Harding, put in charge of track and trace. 19 billion pounds of your money spaffed up the wall to pay for this track and trace system that didn't fucking work. My God, are you kidding me, aren't you? Do you think she went to private school? Yeah, well, we could sort that out by going to the minister or the MP in charge of corruption, in the Tory party. He'll sort it out. Oh, who's he married to? Oh, Dido Harding. Oh. And then Kate Bingham, who was brought in from the private sector to I think she ran a catering company or something, and she was brought in to oversee the vaccine rollout. And it's like, what qualifications does she have? Oh, she went to private school. Oh, okay then. Well, could we have an investigation into Robert Jenrick's escapades at the beginning of the year with Richard Desmond, the owner of, Reader's Wives and Razzle, over this I said arms deal there, this house deal, this homes deal, where basically what he did was he went, we're going to bringing this new rule, it means you're going to have to pay an extra £3 million or something to the taxpayer if you don't get your building permit through within 3 days. And they have a meal together, and he's like, hey, do you reckon you could sort me out one of those building permits in the next 3 days? So I'd have to pay that £3 million to the taxpayer. And Robert Jenrick's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Now, you would expect that to be investigated by the Metropolitan Police, but who leads the Metropolitan Police? Cressida Dick. And you know where I'm going with this one, don't you? Privately educated. Now, I'm not saying that we should all listen to Paul Weller. Well, we should listen to Paul Weller. Jam are very good. But singing Eton Rifles. But there's going to come a point where me just pointing out the fact that everyone who's causing damage to our lives went to private school, and the fact that 93% of the population aren't privately educated, those two things are going to smack into each other at some point. It's just a warning, because I know there's people who went to private school who were all right. What I'd say to them is maybe, I don't know, go on holiday for the next year somewhere nice. You got the money. Everyone else, yeah, I'm not stuck here with you. You're stuck here with me. Ah, yes. So, if you can add to my list of righteous indignation against the private school system in the United Kingdom, which farms out entitled, arrogant, narcissistic sociopaths at a rate that would be not allowed in any other institution. If you had a company, so say like, I don't know, 67% of the workers at McDonald's just turned into psychopaths, from frying the chips or something. There'll be an investigation into McDonald's, I'm pretty sure. What if like nearly everyone who worked for the BBC was a psychopath? I mean, you'd be like, okay, not everyone who works for the BBC is a psychopath, but a significant proportion are. A much higher proportion than the given population. And this is it. 7% of the population went to private school, and they have 99% of the power. And that's not fair. I want a meritocracy, okay? I'm not anti-aristocracy. Well, maybe I am a bit, but I am more than that. I am pro-meritocracy. I think you should get the best person for the job. And that takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes investment. You can put a stopgap measure in for a little bit if you want for the next 20 years, but after 20 years is up, you better make sure that your education system and the way things work is set up in a way that's fair and neutral, and not just jobs for the boys and getting a very cushy number in politics because of the people that you know who you went to school with. It's wrong. It's damn wrong, and anyone who says it's not wrong is talking out their arse. There's also another point which I'm going to say before I start looking at these comments. Right, when it comes to parents who just want the best for their kids, I've just got this to say, right? I wouldn't send my kids, I don't have kids, but if I did have kids, I wouldn't send them to a private school, even if I had the money to do it. Why not? Because the proportion of people who leave private school come out with mental health problems. That's it. The proportion is much higher. So you might want to be a good parent, but if you send your kids to private school, there's a good chance you are inadvertently not being a good parent, because there's a good chance that your child will end up with mental health problems. And unfortunately, the ones who have mental health problems, i.e. sociopathy or psychopathy, is it psychopathy? Psychopathy. They're the ones who end up in power by the looks of things. But it's just too high a proportion to take the risk. I mean, your kid might be fine. Might be part of the X many number of kids who are privately educated in this country who go on to these rich and fulfilling lives looking after lepers in Namibia. But I mean, it just seems to me that literally everybody that has fucked me off in the last 4.5 years, one way or another, went to a private school at some point in their lives. And Charksall saying, Chubby, isn't Eton calling itself a charity? Yeah, that's another thing. These bloody private schools that make millions a year from charging the richest people in the world to get the kids into the school. The charities. What? If they're charities, fucking Apple is a charity, Coca-Cola's a charity. Did you hear? Yeah, they do a lot of good work. They have like Coca-Cola outreach projects. Quick, they're a charity. No, you're not. You're a business. You're there to make money. And what you pay for in a private school is you pay into it so your kids can go there and get some cushy job that they're not qualified for when they come out. Oh, well, one of the things with the A-level that drove me fucking mad was the fact that someone like Jeremy Corbyn, who is so mediocre and so just rubbish at everything, I don't know what he's good at. I guess the people around him are good at pretending that he's the Messiah or something, but it's just so Monty Python. It's like Brian when he falls into the pit and everyone's like, "You're the Messiah," and he's like, "I'm not the Messiah," and he goes, "Yeah, only the true Messiah would deny his own divinity." Okay, then I am the Messiah. I told you, you're the Messiah. It's very, very similar to that. But yeah, you get someone who's mediocre as Corbyn, and he went to a private prep school. He went to a normal grammar school. And grew up in a big stately home. Well, not a stately home, but you know, a very palatial 4-bedroomed house estate. Yeah, when you use the word estate, they mean very different things depending on where you were born. And he went to North London Poly. This pisses me off, right? So this is before tuition fees, right? Which he heroically pledged to decrease by a third if he got elected in 2017. Wow, Jeremy, your socialist credentials are unimpeachable, I tell you. He got in, and he actually got in on like a bursary on some kind of scholarship from a trade union that paid him to go to university and study, I don't know, trade union studies or whatever he got into. Sorry, it was a polytechnic at the time, but polytechnics in the UK in the early 90s all became universities. So yeah, the equivalent of a university. And he dropped out. He dropped out, the miserable sod. Someone else was paying for it. He didn't have to pay any education, anything for his tuition fees. He dropped out. He couldn't be arsed. He's lazy. He's like, I don't have to do this. I'm rich. And then he went on holiday to Jamaica for a bit, and then he came home and he became a politician. He's been a politician ever since. It's pretty much the dictionary definition of a career politician. But for someone like that to have become leader of the Labour Party, there's nothing behind it. If it had been any other country in the world, no way would that guy have got into power. The only reason he's got into power, well, you know, power as in leadership of the Labour Party, is because he went to a posh school. That's it. That's the only thing I can see that makes him stand out from anybody else in politics or in the world at large. So yeah, I think that we have set ourselves up to fail because we have put people who are not qualified to do a particular job, difficult job, leading a country, leading a party, coming up with new ideas for education and health and transport and infrastructure. We've given it to rich idiots instead of having a proper system in which you can only really get the job if you are, you know, committed and educated and know what the hell you're talking about. But obviously, the only qualification you need, well, the only two qualifications you need to run this country, as 2/3 of the cabinet are privately educated, are to have gone to a private school and to be able to lie effectively, be really good at lying. Oh, I'm great at lying, me. John B. Craddock says, particularly sickening to witness the state sector academies marketing themselves with the old public school Hogwarts image, aspiring middle class equal further corruption of the state education system. John, I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I think it's absolutely disgraceful. However, I did find it very interesting that the Lib Dems, whose leader is privately educated, who Layla Moran, who also ran for leader, is also privately educated, and so was Nick Clegg. He was also privately educated. I didn't check on the little funny man from Mad Magazine because Tim Fallon. Someone wants to check if he was privately educated. They can. But one of the things that the Lib Dems wanted to do was do away with grammar schools, and I'm like, I do agree to some extent that grammar schools need reform, but oh my God. If 99% of the people in politics right now, sorry, people in charge, I shouldn't say politics because there are MPs from quite lowly backgrounds, but you know, 99% of the people in charge all went to grammar school, I'd be like, yeah, there's something going on here. But they didn't. They all went to private school. It's very different. It's very different. And they call it public school. This fucks me off as well. Right, why do they call it public school? It's not open to the public. It's a misnomer. Call it a private school. Or, as I like to call it, a see you next Tuesday farm. Can't say the words that I really mean because I'll lose my advertising or something. I don't know. Eaton rifles. What a catalyst you turned out to be. Loaded the guns. Then you run off home for your tea. Yep. Mark K. Geez, give me a break. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face, you fool. Okay. Take that nose. I didn't go to a private school, I don't care. The problem extends into the civil service. Yes, Darren, great point that Darren Christian just made. It goes into everything. It goes into the police, it goes into the military, it goes into the civil service, and it goes into the judiciary. Over 50% of High Court judges were privately educated. Going back to the A-level thing, right, so Oxford, Cambridge and Durham all have an intake of over a third privately educated. So 7% of the population, over 33% of the intake for those three universities. Now my point was going to be with Jeremy Corbyn. These kids don't need to go to university. All the doors are already open to them. They don't care. What do they care? They don't need to go to university and study anything. They go to university, they just get pissed, they destroy a restaurant, they stick their dick in a pig's head. I don't know, whatever they do at university. But they're not there to learn, they're not there to be better people, they're not there to actually get the skills they need to do their jobs that they're going to get later in life. They're just turning up, essentially. So yeah, civil service, newspapers, nearly all of the top newspaper columnists and newspaper people that you actually see and hear of on the TV. The BBC is disgraceful for the amount of public school kids that appear on the BBC. It's overrun with them, and it's not fair. Okay, so yeah, you know, I guess there are people out there who think that this is fair, but they're wrong. And if you agree with me that it's not fair, then we should damn well do something about it. And I'm not saying let's go and burn down all the bloody private schools or even close them down, to be honest with you. I would like to see their charitable status taken off them. And I'd like there to be an inquiry into why so many of these are leading the country and having positions of power in this country. Because it all seems like, it all just reeks of an old boys network to me, or an old girls network, in the case of Dido Harding and Kate Bingham. Lyndon Johnson, Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton all grew up dirt poor. Say what you like about the US, at least they aren't as divided by class as us. That's from Peter. A fairly good point, but then you look at Trump. Bashiro says, everyone loves socialism, the rich call it capitalism. Okay. Old school tie, still alive and kicking. Yeah, Plum Duff. It absolutely. This is the nation that we live in at the moment, and I just think it's wrong. I just think that it's wrong, and I'm sure there are people who've got kids in these schools who would argue with me till they were blue in the face, saying they just want the best for the kids. It's not the kids' fault. All this stuff. But honestly, if you want the best for your kids, don't send them to private school. Please just don't. Please. Don't do it. Yeah, maybe if you do want them to turn into James Bond style megalomaniac super villains, then yeah, go for your life. But that's not what I would want for my kids, if I had any. Anyway, so Darren Christian saying intelligence and good education aren't the same thing. Public education needs improvement. Is it Finland that has no private schools? Yeah, the private schools actually in Europe are quite few and far between. It's Britain that really loves this whole private school system, and people who will never ever afford to send their kids to these schools, they really look up to this system, and if someone talks to them with a plummy accent, they're more likely to listen to them than listen to someone like me. And I know this because I talk to people and they're like, yeah, can't take you seriously, mate. You sound like you're from a city rather than you sound like you've just been shat out a giant aristocrat like Rees-Mogg. It's like the plummier your voice, the more intelligent people think that you are, which is which I guess is just a human foible. I guess it's just a thing that we have a tendency to do. We gravitate towards people that we want to be in charge. And weirdly, psychopaths become very, especially in moments of crises, people gravitate towards psychopaths, which is a weird thing. It's why a lot of the people who won bravery awards in the war and things, the normal ones don't talk about it because it was the most horrific moment of their lives. There's a few that are like, yeah, look at what I did, and you can tell like the well done for doing it, like, but Yeah, I don't know if they did it because it was trying to save people's lives or whether they're just a bit of a psycho. There you go. Chuck Sal says the current system of parental selection of state schools encourages an unofficial selection by money. If you can afford to live in the right catchment area, you get a better school. Chuck Sal, fantastic point. Absolutely. What the hell is going on with this? Where you have to? My brother did this. Go to church for a year to get your kid into the school around the corner, instead of the school that's 2 buses away, to say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. That discriminates against parents who haven't got the time or the money or the energy to go to church every week. You know, my brother's an atheist. He didn't do that because it's all right for me to say this now because my nephew's in university after he had his grades put back correctly. But yeah, the point is, how mad is it that we have a system which is like, okay, if you want to go to this school, you have to support Liverpool. And if you go to this school, you have to support Everton. Oh, all right, then I support Everton. No, you've got to go to the match every week for a year. Why? But you just do to prove that you really love Everton, and then you can come to this school. You'd be like, what? Hang on, how does that work? That's crazy. But yeah, we can do this. Most of the primary schools in this country are church schools, nominally church schools, but they're paid for by the taxpayer. It's not like the C of E fund all these C of E schools around the country. They don't, but they are allowed to actively discriminate against Catholics and discriminate against Jews and Sikhs and Hindus in a way that you would not be able to do in a business. If you were a business and you said, I'm sorry, I can put up an advert in the paper. No Catholics, no Jews, no dogs. Oh my God, they would lynch you. And I know, okay, yeah, some kids from other backgrounds and other faiths do get to go to these schools, but when you live in a society in which over 50% of the population are atheists, you're like, what? How is this still allowed to occur? And whereas it's a nuisance and I think very grossly unfair in Great Britain, Northern Ireland, it's even worse. You go to school and you don't know anyone from the other side of the divide. You never grow up with them. You don't have a friend who's a Protestant or who's a Catholic. You don't fancy anyone who's a Protestant or a Catholic. You never have a relationship with them. You live in your own bubbles because you go to different schools. And what do you think is going to happen when they're adults and they don't know anyone from one side or the other? They're going to go, well, I can hate them because I don't know any of them. It's a lot harder to hate people when you actually have friends from that segment of society that everyone around you purports to hate. Because they're like, oh, I don't like these people. And you're like, well, one of my mates is from those people. Yeah, well, apart from them. Yeah, but a few of my mates and the person I'm in love with is from that side. Do you know what I mean? You mix the kids together. They don't care. They don't see skin colour or race or religion. They don't care. They're just having fun. They're just painting pictures and running around and spreading their germs, whatever kids do these days. The point is that to do this, separate our children into different faiths before they go into school, it's like something from a dystopian novel. And if it didn't already occur, it wouldn't occur to anyone to actually do this crazy shit. Oh yeah, let's separate children out into different schools depending on what faith their parents purport to have. And there are no atheist schools as far as I'm aware. There's no schools where it's like, you must have a copy of The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins or your children can't go to this school. Oh, okay, I go out and buy a copy of the God Delusion. Christopher Hitchens, The Portable Atheist. Yeah, look, I've read it, I made notes, It's not going to happen, is it? So the more people become atheists and the more people become agnostics and the fewer people go to church, it just seems mad. It just seems like a money-grabbing situation by an organisation like the Church of England to get people to go to church, and then the collection plate comes around and everyone stares at you. Yeah, are you going to just put £1 in, are you? Yeah, you tight bastard. Go on, put a note in. We need a new roof. Anyway, yes. So there you go. Back into the messages. Plum Duff. When I drove a taxi years back, I picked up a super rich lady and asked her which university she went to. She said she didn't go because it was self-catering. Yeah, also, she didn't need to go. She'd get a great job. People who grow up going to state schools have to go to university if they want to get a particularly good job. But then you go to university and they say you need more experience. So you go, okay, well, I've got a degree in this matter. I'll go and get more experience. So you visit every single country in the world. And then you come back and you say, I've been to every country in the world. I've got myself a degree. Can I get in now? And they're like, no, And you're like, oh, why not? And like, oh, because you didn't go to a posh school, Graham. Come on. I mean, not just anyone, not just me. I mean, as if I'd go through all that effort and then be told, no, this door is firmly closed to you forever because you don't fit into our little pigeon box, little pigeonhole. Damn. Anyway, so if it's worth asking, if state schools had the same level of per pupil funding, would they have better results compared with private schools? That should be that should set the funding minimum for state school. Ian Norton there, another great point. Sean says, why do working class people who get 5p an hour pay rise suddenly become conservatives? Sean, I don't know. Well, I do know, it's human psychology, isn't it? It's just greed. It's just... Sorry. Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Daylight Dave, let me know. XYX, XXY. Darren, anyone? Someone type something quick. Okay. Well, look, I've got sound registering on my computer. I've got congratulations, you've reached 100 messages. Let me know if you can hear me in the next couple of seconds, or I'm gonna have to reset things. Darian, lol. Yep. Okay, got a load of messages saying yeah, thank you. They took a while to come through. I like the fact that you can actually see what I'm dealing with here. I'm like, help! I'm just like, oh, I'm not going to tell you. Sound on, good. I've got to keep touching I've got my phone here just behind just behind this thing, and I have to touch it every 10 minutes to stop the screen going off, because if the screen goes off, then it stops the sound. And yes, I do have it plugged in. There's no reason for it to go off, but you just can't set the screen timeout to go off on a Samsung product. Anyway, talking about the American dream before I got rudely cut off by my stupid phone for not touching it. Like, pay attention to me. So the American dream is, it's got a dark side to it. And the dark side is that you have someone who lives in a swamp in Alabama who votes Republican, when the Republicans are going to do nothing for them whatsoever, ever in their lives. You know, they're not going to give them healthcare, they're not going to give them social protection, they're not going to look after them, they're not going to pay for their funeral. They are not going to do anything, right? Except perhaps force them to have a child that they don't want. However, they'll vote for the Republicans on the grounds that one day they'll be a millionaire. And when they are, they don't want the government taking 40%. And that is the crux of it. It's like this dichotomy within the dark heart of the American dream. It's kind of a little bit selfish. It's kind of like, yeah, when I make it, I don't want to give back to society. And I think there's a lot of that in the UK as well. But also, what I think I don't know American culture as much as I know British culture, but there does seem to be an element of ladder kicking in the UK, which is, I feel it's a bit unique to the United Kingdom. And look, tell me I'm wrong and show me another country that does this as much. In Australia, they have a tall poppy syndrome, where if anyone tries to show off, like Leighton Hewitt, the tennis player, they all absolutely effing hate him. You know, because they're like, oh, you're showing off, you bastard, don't worry, not like a show off. That's just a particular thing with Australian culture. I don't think we've got that. I think we've got something different. We've got kind of this, the British dream, the British nightmare, I don't know, but it seems to be that you don't want other people having the same opportunities as you did. And it stretches across all of the different classes and all different cultures in people in Britain. It's like, I got this thing, I don't want other people to have it because they don't deserve it. And you're like, what? Why did you deserve it? Well, you know, I was born here. Well, what did you do to do that? You know, you didn't choose any. You didn't choose to be born here. You didn't pick all the countries in the world and all the cities in the world. You think, oh, I think I'll be born there. Thank you very much. You know, what? You didn't do anything. You just showed up. Yeah, but I deserve this, and those other people don't deserve it. Okay, that's really arbitrary. But shouldn't everyone deserve a leg up? Shouldn't everyone deserve the same opportunities, whether they're male, female, gay, straight, black, white, rich, poor? Shouldn't they have the same opportunities? And if they have talents and entrepreneurial zeal and abilities and knowledge, they should be able to use that to better themselves, to better their own lives and to better society. But it doesn't work like that. And so we end up with a cacocracy. Is it a cacocracy? It's like a democracy led by the very worst. Led by the very worst people. We also have a kleptocracy in this country, which is when you have a society that's run by people just stealing money from the country. And we also have a chumocracy, which is the big one, which is what I started talking about today on this episode. The chumocracy runs everything, and it also ruins everything. It just does. It just does. I made it on my own, so no one needs support. Yeah, that's a me, Norton. Yeah, and as I refer to this article on cracked.com, which I'd really recommend. It's called 6 Things Rich People Need to Stop Saying by David Wong, and it is brilliant. And the last one is stop saying no one gave you anything, and it lists all the things that you get for free if you decide that you want to be born in this country. or any country, to be honest with you. But I mean, usually this one. The amount of free stuff that you get, the medical attention when you were born, your vaccinations, your education, which costs a fortune, all given to you for free. All the infrastructure that you use, all of the street lights, the sewers, you didn't build them. You didn't build any of that. It was already there. The society. That's society. And these rich maniacs, these rich anarchists that call themselves libertarians, they go, we don't need government. We don't need government. We just let the market dictate what happens. And you're like, okay, right, so we're just going to let the market dictate what happens. Yeah. So if I come into your house and steal your Monet collection, who's going to stop me? I'll stop you. No, I shoot you in the head first. Who's going to stop me doing that? The police. Yeah, but you said you don't want laws. No, I said I didn't want government. Yeah, but who do you think makes laws? Well, yeah, but they don't enforce it. So you want a police. You want police, but you don't want laws. You don't want to be able to change laws in the future. You don't want to be able to bring in new laws as and when they're necessary because of new technology or something that comes up like a pandemic. You don't want any. No. I just want the market to decide all that. And you're like, oh my God. Just don't get it. No. If you don't have a government, you don't have a judiciary. So what would happen? Yeah, they'll catch me. Okay, yeah, you've done this bad thing. Okay, yeah, all right. You can't put me on trial because there's no judiciary. Take that. Yay, libertarianism. It's just bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. It makes no sense whatsoever. And if these people had no money, they'll call themselves anarchists, but they've got loads of money. They just don't want to pay tax. That's the reality of it. They just don't want to give back to society. They just want to keep it all for themselves. And given the choice, kick the ladder away. And oh my God, is Brexit the biggest exercise, the biggest, I guess, national exercise that has ever been in the history of the world in kicking the ladder away? It's like 17.4 million people got up on the roof and just kicked the ladder away. And the thing is, they all looked around and like a lot of them were in rags and living a shit life and having a terrible, terrible time of it. But it was more important that they make sure the next generation is more wretched and poorer and has fewer opportunities. That was more important to them than actually, I don't know, bettering the situation that they're in. And instead, we've worsened the situation that we were in. We weren't in that bad a situation. That MP who said, oh, the EU's been holding us back all these years. You know, we're the 5th biggest economy in the world. Well, we were. Well, what was your problem? We should have been the 4th! And you're like, oh my God, just get with the program. We live in a world. We live in a world. And I can think of that map from Mr. Chumley Warner's show on Harry Enfield, where they had like the globe, didn't they, of the world, and Britain was like massive, and all the other countries on the globe were tiny. That's the Britain that people have got in their heads, and they're just bonkers. They're just absolutely bonkers. We're all Thatcher's children. There's no such thing as society. That's from Peter, yeah, and that's one of the more toxic legacies of Thatcher. Is that this idea of individualism and people taking responsibility for their own actions and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And it's a nonsense. We all need help. We all need help. No one makes it on their own. No man is an island, as John Donne once wrote. It's very true. We work as a society. We give up certain inalienable rights in order to be, well, not inalienable, just rights. We give up certain rights to not, like, I don't know, go around murdering each other and stealing and raping each other. We give up those rights to the Leviathan, to the government, and say, right, we're going to be part of this. We're going to be part of society. We have a social contract which says we will behave and not break these rules, and we will give money, we'll pay money in tax, and in return we expect certain things from the government. And the one thing that we should expect more than anything else is protection. Protection against disease, not done a very good job there. Protection against ignorance, done a terrible job there. Protection against economic downturns, done a terrible job there. Protection against foreign invading armies, okay, we've done all right there, I guess, in the past. I don't know about now. Protection against getting ill, I'll say pandemics, but also just getting ill in general. Protection against being made destitute. Protection against being made homeless. Protection against mental health issues, protection against all this kind of stuff. That's what the government's supposed to provide. And yet, there's a lot of people in this country and in the government who believe that the government shouldn't really provide anything really, except a way of rich people to make more bloody money, which is as upsetting and as wrong as it sounds. Darren says the UK has dug itself into a rentier capitalist hole, stifling investment and productivity. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the least productive countries in the world, and it's ridiculous. We have a whole army of people who go to work and don't produce very much because we have too long working hours. We expect everyone in at 9 o'clock, which doesn't rhyme with our circadian rhythms at all. Everyone has to get in at rush hour instead of just staggering it through the day. And the fact that COVID has forced a lot of people to work from home who can, has changed things massively, hopefully for the better. And people are being more productive now working at home in their slippers than they were going into work. Although, having said that, I do believe that when this is all over, if I worked in an office, I would still want to go into the office once or twice a week. I wouldn't want to be there every day, but once or twice a week, I would like to be in an environment that wasn't my home to interact with colleagues and have meetings and do all the things that you do in offices. In person, because I do think that makes a bit of a difference. But having said that, I think we need to work out this life-work balance. The one thing that an Australian nurse a few years ago, she was in palliative care, and she did her own survey talking to people who were dying in hospices in Australia, and she asked them all these different questions, and one of them she asked was about regrets. And the number one regret that people had was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard, which I thought was remarkable, because there you go, that's it. We are stifling our own lives. We're only here once, okay? There's no sequel. there wasn't a prequel. What makes you think there's going to be a sequel? I like to think of what Mark Twain said when someone asked him if he was afraid of dying. He said, well, I was dead for billions of years before I was born, and it wasn't too inconvenient. This is it. This is your one existence on this planet. And when you die, you're gone. That's it. You can leave behind a legacy, you can leave behind a body of work, but your consciousness is gone. What makes you is gone. And to spend most of your life working for someone doing a shitty job that you hate for minimum pay is not fair. It's not the way that most people want to live their lives. And it's staggeringly unproductive. It's not even good for capitalism if you want to be just a mercenary capitalist about it, cutthroat capitalism. You give people the opportunity to work to their talents, to their abilities, and to work at a job that they actually enjoy. And that's something that UBI would bring in. The shit jobs will still exist, of course they will, but they'll have to pay a bit more. And the really shit jobs will be done by robots, because I don't want to go and clean a sewer. Let's send a robot down there. I don't want to defuse a fucking bomb. Let's send the robot out to do it instead. And we know this is going to happen anyway, so let's just push that along, bring in UBI, charge massive tax rates on the people owning the property in the United Kingdom, which would make loads of money. And if you have a factory that used to employ 17,000 workers and you've replaced them with a couple of robots, maybe you should still have to pay the tax that you would have to pay if you had 17,000 employees. You're still making money, and you would have had to pay that. You'd have to pay more than that, because you would have to pay wages. You don't have to pay those wages anymore. Okay, fine. Half that wages, what you used to pay, give that straight to the government. There you go. Job's a good one. I just came up with that at the top of my head. I know it probably won't work, and I know it's probably not not that good an idea. I just, off the top of my head, before everyone jumps down my phone and says, no, Graham, that won't work because of X, Y, Z. But I think that'll be a good way of doing it. Protection against Russian agents influencing our sovereignty. Yes. too much 77. Protection against foreign spies and people interfering in our electoral system. Yeah, that's a protection that the government should give us, but they don't. We need to stop the next political disaster. Now that we have politicians who are happy to lie, we need a constitutionally strong, independent body to scrutinise political claims off poll. Yeah, that's about Blackmore. Yeah, I think you're right. But how are we going to get one? I mean, even the Labour Party has got a committee that looks at whether to suspend people from the party or not. And it's hideously biased because it's within the party. It needs to be independent, which I believe it will become independent soon under Starbin. Oh my God, Corbyn and Starbin. Corbyn and Starmer have had a child, and it's Starbin. Ah! I'm going to have a little bit of a rant about Starmer tomorrow, I think, because I really think that he's not doing enough as Labour leader, and I'm not part of some mad cult. And although I did vote for him, he's got to impress me. I'm going to sit back and say, okay, impress me, do something that I like. So I'll talk about that tomorrow, though. I want to stay on sort of public school at the moment and capitalism and the way that the system works in the United Kingdom under this infernal chumocracy, which allows the most mediocre. We're a mediocrity. Yeah, we are. We allow the most mediocre people into positions of power, and they don't know what they're doing. They've got no ideas. They've got no idea. And a lot of them have never lived in the real world. And there's a lot of contention over what the real world constitutes. But if you've never learnt the value of money, I don't know how you can decide how much money people should get. Because it doesn't mean anything to you. To Boris Johnson, of £150,000 a year is chicken feed. That's what he said, it was chicken feed. Oh my God. How out of touch with reality do you want to be? But we look up to these people. We look up to people like Boris Johnson and say, oh, they should be in charge because they went to a posh school. God knows what sort of chaos is coming in January. Well, I know what's coming in January. You don't have to call me God, just Graham will do. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute clusterfuck. It really is. It's going to be. Because whether we get a deal or not, as I keep saying, and I do think we're going to get a wafer thin deal, even if we get a deal, it's going to be carnage at the ports because we need to check everything coming in. And we never used to check everything coming in before. We used to check some of the stuff coming in that was coming in from places that were outside the EU or the EEA, but we're not going to do that anymore. We're literally going to check everything coming in, and it's going to take ages. Brexiteers and Brexit, all lowercase, please. John B. Craddock is he's very adamant that Brexiteers should be spelled with lowercase. Now I don't not disagree. Does that make sense? I hate it when people say that. I feel like the B in Brexiteer stands for Britain, and so it possibly should have a capital. Like Ebola, and the Ebola virus is named after a river in Africa, so it gets a capital E in a way that COVID doesn't necessarily have to get a capital C, I don't think, but it always seems to. But yeah, whether they deserve a capital B, yeah, I don't think they do. But at the same time, yeah, maybe Britain doesn't deserve a capital B anymore. Maybe we should all start spelling Britain with a little b. Just show them what we're made of. As a Swede, I'm trying to get the F out. Yeah, Linda, I go with God. Seriously, maybe come back in a few years when we've got our shit together. We've got all our shit together. Put it in a backpack. Put it in a museum if we need to. Just get all our shit together. I think it might take more than a few years though, at this rate. Another COVID announcement at 3. That's from Choksal. Oh, great. They're just going to say, yeah, everyone, spread COVID at Christmas. Happy Christmas. Here's some COVID, yeah. Ian Norton said, given the mess of Brexit and bold lie, corruption, what on earth will the next political disaster here be? Well, I think it's just going to be Brexit, and then it's going to be the separation of the Union. I mean, that's going to be messy. When Scotland leaves, it's not going to be easy, as we've found leaving the EU. You're separating, with the EU, you're separating a country from a political union that has only really existed as a political union since 1992. Right? So it's less than 30 years old. And yeah, obviously the EEC goes back further than that. But Scotland and England have been the United Kingdom since 1707. So you're trying to separate a country that has existed for 313 years. And you're going to try and separate, think about everything. Put the post office, think about the military, think about the fact that the Trident submarines are up in Fastlane in Scotland. Think about the way that the elections are carried out in Westminster. Everything's going to change. This literally every part of people's lives in both England and Scotland will change as a result of Scotland leaving again. And it didn't have to happen. It didn't have to happen. And I would honestly, if Brexit wasn't a thing and we weren't Brexiting, I would still be on the side of I think we would be better together. I think we're better as a country together with our separate cultural identities, separate languages. But when it comes to the sort of the big things like defence, we pool our resources and we pool our sovereignty. Yeah, that's gone out the window now because of Brexit, and I do think that Scotland have got a very, very, very good reason for wanting to dissolve the union, which is going to happen in the next couple of years, and that's going to be the next big political crisis. Chucksal says sorry 3:30. Yeah, Chucksal, it'll probably be about 7 o'clock. Knowing Boris Johnson, he doesn't like keeping time on things. He likes keeping people waiting. That's a power play that they all learned from Putin. Putin always does that. He turns up late for meetings as a power play, which I just think is so rude, so rude. 2021 supermarket sweep, but a Mad Max version. Yeah, Eddie Burns, we could make a movie out of that. Darian saying London is going into tier 3, which will get me out of having to go out. There you go. I wish there was some way of making it so that we didn't have to see anyone over Christmas. I would just rather just stay in my basement here and make videos, but unfortunately. Disunited Kingdom, the DK. Sadly, he only manages that with fridges. I think that's Charlie Pierce there talking about Boris Johnson and hiding in fridges. Jim Bob says, bugger, YouTube went down and Bollard up the notification, missed it. Don't worry, Jim Bob, you can watch it on catch up. It'll still exist. It just might not make as much sense when I'm responding to comments that aren't coming up on the Twitter feed. Oh no, actually, they come up on here, don't they? Yeah, no, it's fine. You can watch it in the future. It's all right. What do you think will leave first, Scotland or Northern Ireland? Scotland, absolutely, definitely, 100%. Scotland's going to have elections in May, I think, next year, and they are going to vote to leave the Union. They're going to vote for the SNP, who are going to win by over 50%, probably about 53, 54%. And and then they're going to have a referendum in probably October. And it'll be backed by the EU and by Biden. No, Biden's just going to put loads of pressure. He has no love for the British. He really does not have any love for the British. We know this because he takes his Irish ancestry very seriously, and Ireland still hasn't recovered from the potato famine that was exacerbated by the British. You could argue it was caused by the British, but British intervention in Ireland, the Battle of the Boyne, when you had some guy from, I don't know, Holland or something coming over and killing people from Ireland for some reason, and then you had, before then you had the Highland, I'll come to the Highland clearances in a moment. You had Oliver Cromwell, who went over to Ireland and just killed everyone, killed thousands and thousands of people with his army. What a bastard! What a scumbag! Good song though by Elvis Costello. And then you have Scotland. You had the Scottish clearances, which were a disgraceful attempt by the English to wipe out the Scottish language. Something they tried in Wales as well. They banned people from learning Welsh, banned people from learning Welsh in school, and it was only because the villagers made sure that the kids learnt Welsh that it continued as a language, but the English tried to wipe it out. And then something that I've mentioned a few times on this, because I only found out about this when I moved to Panama and learned about New Caledonia, not the New Caledonia that you're thinking of, which is an island, a French island, halfway between Australia and New Zealand. No, that's a different New Caledonia. This was a colony set up in the 1690s, and they went over with something like 3/4 of all of Scotland's money at the time to set up this new colony, but they unfortunately set it up in the Darien Gap, a part of Panama is best described as uninhabitable because of the just intense jungle down there. It's very close to the equator. In fact, the Pan American Highway, which the unofficial Pan American Highway, which effectively runs all the way from the north of Alaska, all the way down the west coast of America, all the way down through Mexico, through Guatemala, through El Salvador, through Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. It stops in Panama. It stops at the Darien Gap because it's so impassable. You take a boat. You have to take a boat via the San Blas Islands if you want to go overland through there. I know a few people who have actually crossed through the Darien Gap, but it's very dangerous. It's not recommended. Anyway, this colony of people went over, and then the second boat went over, I think a couple of years later. And obviously back in the day, you couldn't just text someone and say, how's it going? And they turned up, and literally everyone had deserted or was dead from the first expedition. And so the second expedition were like, shit. They turned around, tried to get some help from the British colonies in the West Indies, and the governors, the regional governors, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Barbados and Jamaica, they were told by the English king not to give any succour to the Scottish colonists. These weren't army people. These weren't military. They weren't at war. These were women and children and they were told not to give them anything, not even a barrel of water. And the English did that to the Scots, and they all died. I don't know if any of them survived, but they did. Very, very, very few of them. Meanwhile, they were busy wiping out the Caribs. I like to ask people, why is the Caribbean called the Caribbean? No idea. Well, there used to be a bunch of people there called the Caribs, and they don't live there anymore because the British pretty much wiped them out with a little bit of help from the Spanish and the French. But yeah, the English history with the other countries of the British Isles has been disgraceful, to be honest with you, and there's lots of things that there, like old wounds, that will be reopened when Scotland leaves and when Ireland is reunified, and eventually Wales is going to go, sod this for a game of soldiers. Why are we putting up with this? We can either stay part of a failing state, England, or we can go independent and rejoin the EU. And as a small country with a lot going for it, it's got, one of the things that the English love to do, and you see this all the time, even now, is talk down to Irish people, to talk down to Scottish people, and talk down to Welsh people, going, you won't make it on your own. And I never thought that. I never thought that Scotland wouldn't make it on its own. I thought it would be difficult for Scotland to rejoin the EU back in 2014 when they had the referendum. I also thought that we were better together. I honestly believe that we were better as one nation rather than splitting up into separate sovereign nations. We had more power, more muscle, more kudos, everything. It just made sense to me at the time. Now I'm looking at it going, no, Scotland's got to go. Scotland's got to go independent. We all know it's got to go independent. Okay, fair enough. Let's see. We can make that happen the best way we can. But the way that a lot of commentators talk about Scotland and Wales is they wouldn't make it on their own. You're too small. You're too small, you won't make it, you don't have enough people, you import more than you export. Oh, you import more than you export? Isn't that a reason for the EU needing us more than we need the EU? Brexiteer man, fictional Brexiteer man that I'm pretending I'm talking to. And you're like, okay, right, yeah. So that doesn't seem to be a massive problem to me. If you're Welsh, right, there's a good chance that you are well educated compared with people around the world. And I know that it's all relative. Well educated, there are good jobs in Wales, and the thing is, as a country, it is a viable country in the same way that Latvia is, and Lithuania, and Estonia. They're only little countries, but they do it. Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Monaco, it's possible. You find your niche, and Wales has got such a wealth of culture and history and awesomeness about it. Yeah, there's stuff that Wales can do, and it's so condescending and patronising and just this belittling attitude of, oh, you need us, you couldn't survive on your own. And London does this to the north as well. Oh, you'll be nothing without London. London's where we make all our money. You'll be nothing without London. And you look around places like Scunthorpe and Sunderland, and you're like, oh wow, thanks, London. So I guess we'll be worse off if it wasn't for London people being patronising at us, but maybe. Anyway, I'm going to jump back into some of the messages here. Darren saying, sound okay on YouTube, thank God for that. I don't think Peter realises just how much they are hated by the Irish. By the Irish, Scottish, Europeans, basically everyone. That's from Peter Connor. Yeah, and Peter, this didn't have to happen. This didn't have to happen. I've travelled a lot, and the attitude towards me being a British person has changed massively over the last 5 years as a direct result of the complete arseholes we're making of ourselves through Brexit. And it has reopened these old wounds Now, why do we hate the English? Well, because they did this, this, and this. Oh, I didn't know about that. Now I hate them even more. You see, this is what happens when you mess with stuff. This is what happens when you take something that is perfectly functional, it's working okay. Okay, you can maybe tinker around with it, make it work more effectively, or make it work more in your favour. That's an option there. But instead of doing that, you smash up the thing that you had, and you are left with nothing because you wanted change. Oh, give me a break. We don't learn our own history in Scotland, Graham. This is the problem. That's from Mars Jeddah. Yeah, that's probably, I don't feel like we learn English history properly when we study English in this country. Certainly not up to GCSE level. I mean, my learning curve doing my A-levels, my history A-levels, and studying history and politics in university, my learning just went through the roof. And it was kind of mind-blowing to realise at that age of like, oh my God, all this stuff I've been taught has all been so slanted, has all been so biased towards, we were always the good guys in every given situation. When the reality was, we weren't. We were just as bad as everybody else. But to not teach that, I think, is wrong. And it's like we only want simple answers. We only want simple characters in our books and our films. We can't have someone who's complex and nuanced, someone who's a good person but can do bad things, or a bad person who can do good things. Oh no, that would blow our mind. No one would ever watch a TV show where something like that happened. Breaking Bad. But I mean, it's Sopranos. But yeah, this is the attitude we have in teaching English, teaching history in this country, and we've still got people like Loser Fox and Gavin Williamson whinging about schools teaching the truth about what Britain did in the past, and saying, oh yeah, we did keep slaves and that's how we made loads of money. Oh, you can't tell kids that. It'll give them a complex. Oh, fuck. Can the left Labour still win elections without Scotland? That's 50 plus allied seats. What do you make of England's natural conservatism? I think that the left is absolutely screwed if Scotland leaves. That's it. It's over. It's going to be a conservative country until the end of England, but I do think that having a conservative country will hasten either the rise of city-states around the country, or a north-south divide. Someone just cuts a line just south of Liverpool, Sheffield, and everything north of that becomes its own country. Sound just disappeared. Oh no. Have we lost sound again? Just watched a couple of good videos about how rich Scotland actually is and how the English were desperate to stop them finding out. New documents just came out. Check IndyCar Gordon. That's from Chockstyle. Yes, Scotland's really rich. It's got nearly all of our fish that we whinge about all the time. Bloody fish, we want our fish. What about our fish? Scotland's got most of it. But also, consider this, 20% of all of our food and drink exports, 20% is Scotch whisky. I supported, by value, I should say. I supported South Africa at Twickenham, bought the shirt, was interested in seeing the abuse the English give non-people. I'm embarrassed to be English so much more after Brexit. Yeah, same here. Jim Bob says, international interests rates are negative. Great time to fund a new small nation if UK splits. Good point. Sorry, non-English. Sorry, I didn't know what you were on about then. It's non-English. Okay, fair enough. What's the point? That's the point. We believe in union, but of equals, whereas England wants to dominate, but is too dysfunctional to do a good job. That's from Ernie Burns. You're absolutely right. So let's skip to the end now, because I've got to get off. People are always saying bye to Darren. Darren, bye. I've already missed him now. Linda there, and Darren, and just me and videos as well. And I just want to say a quick thank you to my latest Patreon. I've got a new Patreon. I'm so excited. Alex Green. Sorry, no, he's following me on Mixcloud. Patreon. Right, Andrew Newton. Sorry, Andrew Newton is my latest Patreon follower. Patriot. No, not Patriot. What's the word for it? Patron, that's it. My patron, easy for you to say. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to Andrew Newton there, and to everybody watching this, I'd like to say a huge big thank you for joining me, for giving me some wonderful messages to read. I know I've gone on a little bit on this one. I've not been as I've not been as kind to my lovely comment section here as I normally am. Not been as attentive, I should say. I'll give it a nice little stroke here. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with more to say about stuff at 1 o'clock on HughesRound. And thanks for watching. Thanks for taking part. And we'll get through this madness together. I hope. This is great. This is like cathartic for me just to get all this out, and it's probably good for Catherine as well because it means she doesn't have to put up with me bending her ear every day about the shit that's going on in our country and around the world. So until next time, I will see you, and I'll say.